Hello and welcome to this week's edition of World Today. It has been a week of tragedy, of loss and a lot of developments on the international front. Shinzo Abe, a world leader, was shot dead. We'll talk about that in detail, but first up, the headlines. 67-year-old former Japan PM Shinzo Abe confirmed dead after being shot twice in the chest. World in mourning. Boris Johnson steps down as UK Prime Minister after multiple scandals and mass candidate resignations. Rishi Sunak in contention to be the next British Prime Minister. Six people were killed after a 22-year-old opened fire at the US Independence Day parade in Chicago. The suspect has been arrested. And Finland and Sweden take a step forward to joining the alliance as NATO ambassadors sign the accession protocols. The world is in mourning. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's assassination has shocked the world. Abe was delivering a speech in Nara city when he was shot at twice and succumbed to his injuries hours after the attack on the former Prime Minister. Here's a report.
Just like any other day, Shinzo Abe was on the street addressing a rally in support of his party candidate. It was 11:30 in the morning and a crowd had gathered to hear Japan's longest-serving Prime Minister speak. Abe had just started speaking when shots rang out. This was the moment when the attack occurred in the western city of Nara. Abe collapsed after being hit by 2 bullets. He lay on the ground, his shirt blood-stained from the wounds on his neck and chest.
He was making his speech, and from behind a man approached, and we were watching from above, and the first shot was just like a bazooka-like, toy-like gun, and nobody collapsed. He was still, and nothing happened. But with the second shot, we could see gunpowder and we could see the smoke coming out. It was the same gun, yes. And after the first shot, he kind of went back. And with the second shot, Mr. Abe collapsed.
Medics realized that Abe was critical. As Medivans airlifted him to the Nara Medical University, there were no vital signs. At 5 p.m., the hospital announced that Abe had died.
Former Prime Minister Abe, he has been transferred to hospital 12:20 on arrival. He has had no vital signs. And we conduct resuscitation measures. However, unfortunately, 5 p.m., he has passed away.
Immediately after the firing, a 41-year-old man was tackled to the ground and arrested. Tetsuya Yamagami confessed to firing at Shinzo Abe. He said he had shot to kill the former Prime Minister. Japanese media said Yamagami was a former member of the Maritime Self-Defense Force. The attack on Abe stunned Japan, a nation with very stringent gun laws. More so, as political assassination are very, very rare in Japan.
Elections are being held. This is the very foundation of democracy. And such an incident took place. It is barbaric and malicious, and it cannot be tolerated. We will do everything we can. I would like to use the most extreme words available to condemn this act.
The assassination of a very popular Japanese Prime Minister shocked the world. Prime Minister Modi fondly remembered his association with Abe and recalled how he had been an outstanding global leader. Prime Minister Modi also announced one-day national mourning in India to honor Shinzo Abe, who he called a dear friend of India. Bureau Report, India Today.
Shinzo Abe was a friend to reckon with on global stage. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's friendship cemented ties between the two countries. They contributed in cementing relations to the extent that we saw from mega trains to defense to push on infrastructure. India and Japan and the ties between the two countries, relationship between the two countries grew stronger under the Prime Ministership of late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Here's a report.
One of the most significant events on Indian calendar, and Shinzo Abe becomes the first Japanese Prime Minister to attend it as a chief guest. The visit clinched an ever closer relationship between Asia's second and third largest economies. More so at a time when tensions ran high between Japan and China with their territorial disputes in the East China Sea. And when Chinese incursions in Ladakh and Arunachal a year before had soured India-China ties. And these hugs cemented the friendship. A slew of agreements marked Abe's visit to India a year after the BJP took power at the centre, 16 of them ranging from infrastructure, defence, technology to peaceful use of nuclear energy. As a special gesture, India announced a visit on arrival scheme for all Japanese travellers. On track to realise Prime Minister Modi's vision of a new India, India's first high-speed rail project was founded during Abe's next visit 2 years later. Japan extended technical and financial assistance for running a bullet train between Ahmedabad and Mumbai. It was during Abe's term when India and Japan upgraded their relationship to a special strategic and global partnership. In a 2007 book, Abe envisioned Japan's ties with India would overtake its relations with the United States. The evolution of a broad-based partnership, a broader convergence of economic and strategic goals in geopolitics. Bureau Report, India Today.
The other big news development of the week. Boris Johnson resigned as Prime Minister of the UK. His 3-year tenure was tumultuous. He faced not one but 2 no-confidence motions, but the last straw was a slew of resignations, a record number of resignations that led to the Prime Minister stepping down. Here is a detailed report of the rise and fall of Boris Johnson.
I want you to know how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world.
From Brexit to exit, Johnson's reign lasted 3 years. And 3 tumultuous years it were, with Johnson surviving not one but 2 no-confidence motions on the floor of the House of Commons.
And I hope he gets on with his.
The immediate pressure to step down was the record number of resignations in the last 24 hours. One by one, Johnson's top ministers dumped him and left, unable to handle the slew of scandals that shadowed the government. In the end, Johnson was left isolated and powerless, even as his Conservative Party bayed for his blood. The last proverbial straw was the sexual escapades of Deputy Whip Chris Pincher, a man Johnson appointed despite claims of sexual misconduct surfacing against the Tory MP in 2019. Much before that, Johnson was beginning to lose the trust of people after the Partygate scandal. In total, 16 gatherings were held at Johnson's home and office and other government offices when the country was under COVID lockdown. The government probe detailed the drunken parties by Johnson's staff at a time when millions of people by order locked up in their homes as the pandemic raged. Boris even had to pay a fine.
As we've seen at Westminster, the herd instinct is powerful. When the herd moves, it moves. And my friends, in politics, no one is remotely indispensable.
Yes, Johnson did handle the Brexit crisis pretty well and made his mark as a world leader when it came to Ukraine war.
Yes.
But back home, the rising cost of living and increasing unemployment went ignored.
Our future
Johnson may be
together
sad that
is
he's
gone.
losing the best job in the
Thank you all
world,
very much.
but very clearly not many in Britain are shedding a tear for him. Bureau Report, India Today.
Just a few days ago, US Senator advanced a bill regarding continuous incidents of gun violence in the United States of America. It's a restricted and a narrow package regarding firearms restrictions and a proposal for billions of worth of budget for mental health and school security. Having said that, President Biden on the 4th of July was addressing the nation when the nation yet again witnessed another incident of gun violence. In fact, a gun violence report suggests that every state of the United States of America witnessed gun violence incidents across the country, claiming 200 lives in this gun violence epidemic. Take a look.
Celebrate the goodness of our nation, tweeted the President of the United States on 4th of July, the American Independence Day. And this is what America witnessed less than an hour later. Seven people killed and several injured. A gunman on a rooftop opened fire into a crowd of spectators gathered to celebrate the 4th of July parade in Chicago suburbs, Highland Park.
And we ran behind the building, and I put my son in a dumpster, and he sit there with his dog, and I went back to look for the rest of my family. I left him with someone there so that I can go back to get my phone and find the rest of my family. That was the worst experience ever because, you know, all I thought about was my son, and I can only imagine what that family's going through.
It just makes me feel like we're not safe anymore. You know, I currently was living in Waukegan, and I, left Waukegan to come to Highland Park because it's a safe community. I grew up in the Highwood Highland Park area, and to experiment this on a holiday that means a lot to people because they go with their families and they attend.
Hours later, 21-year-old Robert E. Crimo III surrendered to the police for launching an open fire during the Independence Day parade, and police charged him with 7 counts of first-degree murder.
He had purchased five firearms. 5 firearms, and that includes rifles and handguns as well. There were a combination of which, I don't have the exact count, at least 2 rifles, some pistols, and possibly a shotgun. Those were seized at his father's home pursuant to a search warrant yesterday.
And sadly, it did not end there. 4th of July saw another shooting, and this time it was on the police officers in Philadelphia. 2 policemen were shot near the Benjamin Franklin Parkway when thousands of people celebrated the American Freedom Day concert and fireworks show. Later, both the officers were reported to be in a stable condition. Both the incidents took place at a time when America is not yet over the trauma that the school children's mass shooting in Texas and black shoppers in New York's Buffalo gave it. Mass shootings happens in US is a depressing regularity, as the country has seen at least 11 mass shootings since the start of July, with the latest on Monday at a July 4th parade. US publication reports that there were 470 mass shootings in the US in 2019, and the number has only risen since then to 693 in 2021. Though the US Senate is trying to toughen gun laws, only halfway through the year 2022, US has already seen over 300 mass shootings with roughly 22,500 deaths caused by gun violence.
There have been a lot of developments in and around the Russia-Ukraine war. In the latest, accession protocols have been signed to initiate the process of Finland and Sweden to join NATO. This even as Russia continues to take larger parts and swaths of land in eastern Ukraine. The question is, will this addition in NATO change anything on the ground for Russia or, for that matter, for Ukraine?
NATO may soon have 32 member states with the inclusion of Finland and Sweden.
Part of the ratification process.
While the developed world is securing its borders, let's see what is happening in Ukraine. As NATO ambassadors signed the accession protocols for Finland and Sweden at NATO headquarters on 5th of July 2022 in the presence of Finnish Foreign Minister Pekka Haavisto and Swedish Foreign Minister Ann Linde.
I commend all allies for moving so quickly in accepting Finland and Sweden's applications for membership. And I want to thank Turkey, Finland and Sweden for their constructive approach. The trilateral agreement they signed at the Madrid summit made today possible. I know all three parties are working hard on the implementation and robust follow-through, especially in the fight against terrorism. I now count on all allies to ensure the speedy ratification of the accession according to their national procedures.
Ukraine, on the other hand, witnessed a major setback with Luhansk, falling to the Russians. Russia has claimed this part of the Donbas region, while Ukraine has described the fall as tactical retreat.
The units that took part in active hostilities and achieved success, victory in the Luhansk direction, of course, should rest, increase their combat capabilities, while other military formation, including both the East grouping and the West grouping, should carry out their task according to previously approved plans, according to a single plan. And I hope that everything will happen in their direction in the same way as it happened in Luhansk so far.
Finland and Sweden joining NATO is vastly different from Ukraine being part of it. Therefore, Kremlin had said that the decision will not rattle Moscow till their security is not compromised. But the real work begins now. Will Turkey see through ratification of the protocol in the parliament? For now, Turkey has hailed the 10-article agreement, which they say has taken into account Ankara's concerns.
Undoubtedly, this memorandum is a diplomatic victory for Turkey and our nation after a difficult negotiation process. With the three-way memorandum, full cooperation with Turkey against PKK and its extensions, solidarity in the fight against all forms and manifestations of terrorism, a commitment not to support the PYD, YPG and FETÖ, not to impose embargoes and restrictions in the field of defense industry, and to increase cooperation.
Ankara could still block the process if the two countries fail to fully meet Turkey's demand to extradite who they consider terror suspects with links to outlawed Kurdish groups or the network of an exiled cleric accused of a failed 2016 coup in Turkey. While Erdogan claimed that Sweden had promised to extradite and crack down on the financing and recruitment activities of the Kurdistan Workers' Party and its extensions, representatives of the Nordic countries only said that they would address those requests in accordance with the European Convention on Extradition and gave no firm number in the written agreement. Meanwhile, Ukraine forces have been taking up new defensive lines in the eastern part of the country, preparing for the next phase in the war, as President Vladimir Putin proclaimed Russia's victory in the months-long Battle of Luhansk.
That's all in this week's edition of World Today. Stay tuned to India Today for all the latest news and updates.